Back in March of 2019, I wrote an article about adding dark mode styling to a WordPress theme. It was in response to Apple adding dark mode support to Safari. Soon after, the other browsers added dark mode support too. Well, technically the term is prefers color scheme media query, and dark or light are the options. The point is that the support is great. As mentioned in a previous Photics TV web video, if you drop support for Internet Explorer, you can add a cool feature to your website. That's what this video is about. More specifically, it's about adding dark mode support to an existing WordPress theme. In this example, Photics.com is using the 2016 theme from the WordPress team. It's a nice and clean theme. It doesn't really matter which theme you pick. It doesn't even matter if you're using WordPress. This technique is just plain vanilla CSS. That's the web technology that adds styling to a website. If that's too technical, don't worry. This is one of the great features about WordPress. It has a built-in CSS editor. Very nice. And there it is. Media prefers color scheme dark. Basically, what that says is, if the color scheme is dark, in other words dark mode, then use these styles. From there, it's a matter of using CSS. A web page is basically a collection of boxes arranged in a tree-like manner. More technically, this is known as the document object model. Using CSS, you can target specific boxes. Here I'm changing the background color and the font color. That's all there is to it. I'm not saying it's not tedious, because it is, and I'm not saying it always works as expected, because this overrides existing styles. That can get confusing. But in general, this is not a bad project to get acquainted with CSS. It teaches the basics. First, this involves learning about selectors. As an example, you can target an element type. Here I'm telling all of the hyperlinks to have a specific color. Then, over here, I'm using what is known as a pseudo class, which is represented by the colon. I'm changing the font coloring if the cursor hovers over a hyperlink. That sounds technical and looks technical, but it's not too bad once you're familiar with CSS. A great way to get familiarized with CSS is to look at the code on your website. You can do this with the Web Inspector. I'm using Safari, but the other major web browsers have their own developer tools too. You can target a specific element by right-clicking and selecting Inspect Element. It shows the HTML code. An element can have a class. It's a name for a group of styles. By finding which classes are in use by the WordPress theme, you can add your own custom CSS to change elements with that class name. In CSS, names preceded by a dot are targeting class names. There's a lot of that going on here. Main navigation, site footer, entry content. I looked for the class names that the WordPress team used. Then I'm modifying those classes in the dark mode styles. That's why it's nice to use the built-in CSS editor in WordPress. You can see the changes live, but without publishing them to your website. That makes it easier to find those hard-to-target elements. Once everything is okay, then the changes can be published. I didn't like the dark mode look on my website right away. You might need to tweak the styling. You might need to update your content too. As an example, one of the big problems with using dark mode is with light images. If you have a screenshot of a desktop in light mode, that really stands out against a dark background. It's quite harsh. This is even tougher on interactive content, as my hype content boxes glaringly stood out. To solve that problem, I launched the dark mode template for Tumult Hype. A future video about that is planned. Although, at the current rate of video production, I might get there in about 4 years. Anyway, thanks for watching.